Hi there and welcome to the Pod Pod, the Northwest's newest all-purpose recording studio for content creators. If you've got something to say and need a place to say it, search for podpod.uk. In all the usual social channels, give us a like and a follow and get in touch to reserve your time to create. Right, welcome everybody to our next Social Enterprise Network podcast funded by Proper Good. So this one's going to be all about the sport and the role that sport plays in the VCFSE sector, the Voluntary Community Faith and Social Enterprise sector. So with me today, introduce yourselves. We've got Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I work for Groundwork. I'm the Sports Integration Coordinator.
Hi, I'm Dean Kenny. I'm Vice Chairman at Ince Rose Bridge Sports and Community Club.
John Piddleberry from Wigan Cosmos Football Club. Coach, chairman, groundsman.
Jack of all trades, yeah. You'd be the mayor of Abram next year. So, obviously I wanted to do this one about sport, specifically focus around your role, Hannah, because how long have you been in place now?
Since January.
And this was recognised, weren't it, at GM level, probably nationally, but certainly GM level as a needed role. So can you explain a bit more about your role?
Yeah, so previously to me coming on board, the Community Health Building Project, which Melissa took part in a couple of weeks ago to explain more about that, recognised the valuable role sports clubs play within any borough, not just Wigan and Lee, but any borough, and how engaging within the community can break down a lot of social barriers, provide a lot of opportunities and get people out and active. My role was recognised because how do we galvanise the community to access this if they're not interested in rugby, if they're not interested in football, but how can they still get involved, still be active, still access that community that is already built within the club, even though they don't necessarily want to play the sport. They might want to take part in, doing teas and coffee at the end of a cricket match. They might want to open up some other kind of community club within the vicinity of a clubhouse. And how do we get that moving? How do we get that going? As well as, because once people are coming out of the house, they're going to be active, they're going to get moving, they're going to be socially engaged in their community. And that way you build a neighbourhood and people are just better off. So I was brought on board through some funding in order to explore these areas through something called Test and Learn. So if a club is showing interest but they're not sure how to go about it, we can look at a way to trial it, get the evidence from that, take the learning, good or bad. There's no failure. It's take the learning and how can we move that forward.
So how many groups are you now working with then? Have you got
So at the moment I'm involved in around 3 groups. A lot of my time has been taken to just get into the clubs, understand where they are, what they're doing, where they're set within the community, what needs they have. So I'm 8 months in now and I'm just starting to get things up and running with John. Hopefully soon as well work alongside Ince Rose Bridge and the community they're building there. Been doing things at Aspel Rugby Club. So things are coming together. You can't put something on a community, you've got to listen to what they need, and that takes time.
Yeah. So obviously you mentioned one of the groups you're working with in Ince Rose Bridge Rugby Club.
Sports and Community
Club, yeah. So tell us a bit more about what you do, because it's fascinating that you're obviously not just rugby club, you do a lot more.
We're not, I think many years ago when the club was first established, it was given funding for all the community, for community purposes, part of Sport England, but predominantly over the years it turned into just a rugby one sport kind of club. And around 4 or 5 years ago we got a basically new chairman in, looked at the constitution, looked what it said, noticed that it is a sports and community club, and underneath that different sports, different activities was for the community basically. So we went about kind of looking how we can increase revenue, increase participation, catering for people more than sports. Like you said, Anna, people coming to Down who just, maybe the Labour Club's shut down and they want just somewhere to call home where they can walk in. So we had a look at that, and there was an opportunity come from one of our members whose son played rugby. He was running a football division, kind of a setup called Wigan Town FC. They were run predominantly from Parsons Meadow, which was St Jude's Rugby Club. They didn't really have a home. They was playing on different fields, so we kind of said we can do something here, and we went into collaboration. They become a member under the club, and as of 3 years ago, we are now a multi-sports club catering for football, rugby, plus well-being as well, and that's from mini bridges from 2 years of age to 6 years of age. We've got vets, we've got masters, we've got disability rugby. Girls rugby, we're setting up girls football when we get some more land, which we might touch on a little bit earlier. But yeah, really tapping into the community and tapping into what else can we do to grow this club, but not grow it in revenue wise, grow it in participation and that equality of no matter what background you come from, if you're not sporty, if you just want a sense of belonging, bringing them down to the community and what we can do more for them. So yeah, quite a lot there than just the rugby club.
Yeah, and I think it's key, and it's interesting to know sports clubs are the key part of every kind of neighbourhood. And I know, obviously, turn to yourself, John. Obviously, we've been closely involved with your story as an organisation at Wigan League Community Charity. So, because I think the first time I met you we were looking at taking over the field at St John's, and I know obviously. For anyone else who doesn't know, obviously in Abram, where most of our work's been doing, we've been working on a neighbourhood plan.
I was born and raised in Abram. I went to St John's school.
Oh, yeah, I went there as well. I'm a governor there now, and I used to go to school there. Yeah,
Mr. Fletcher, he's not about, is he? He used to be the headmaster.
Oh, I left in '86. Yeah, showing me age now, kind of thing. But that's the thing. We've been doing an Abram Ward neighbourhood plan, and I know that was key to obviously behind your story. So. Explain a bit more about your journey, John.
So then we left Foster's and Ince and then moved to Abram, and that's where we started working with Dave. And it was a case of like taking a bit of like land or what was pitches and transforming them back what had been left 20 or 30 years, and just sort of undoing all that. And we're still working on it to get them right and providing sporting opportunities for the community. And then, like we were saying about other opportunities for people get involved in. So it's not just the non-sporting side of it as well. So where you've got the facilities and everything in place, we're starting from the bottom up, developing it from there. So from the football we do, we're a Wildcat Centre. That's 5 to 11-year-old girls who come to that. On the back of that, because the brothers were playing and wanted to do something, we said, we'll set up a boys one, 5 to 11. We've got plans to do an under 5s, which we'd use a hall to do it inside, to do it indoors, and then going all the way up from teams, junior teams into adult teams. We've not got a vets yet, but we're looking to get a vets. We've got walking football, so you go from basically can start playing football and go all the way through. Offshoots of that is other clubs of walking, running, cycling, pretty much everything. We're working on getting an indoor facility or clubhouse and getting that developed, so we're just working with the council at the minute on that and the FA to get that done. If we can get an indoor space, then we've got a clubhouse what we can use, and then other facilities from there, which will then bring people in. We're looking at pensioners afternoons and things like that to get sort of, and reading clubs and things like that, education side of it as well. So we're looking to sort of offer, and a gym. We've had stuff donated from Evan versus L the other week, gym equipment, which we can, when we build it, we can put inside it. So it's just a case of developing
volunteers to build.
Yeah. But for people to get involved and come into it and buy into what we're doing, the players to buy into what we're doing, and seeing the difference in some of these young people. They've been coming down helping work on the ground over the summer holidays. So when you start talk about having that bond on the pitch, if you develop it off the pitch, you're creating, because they want to see it improve. They want to see the developing their community and a better community and a better facility, which therefore they then look after because it's for them, it's theirs. So it's about, for me, changing lives and giving these kids hope, something to do, something to build on, and opportunities. They can start with us just by having a love of football and go anywhere in the world to do sort of any role in football, not just playing, but your physio side, your sports data side, everything what you can think of involved with football now, the media side of it. You can start here and sort of from that love of sport go and have a career anywhere. It's about creating aspirations and dreams and saying you can achieve and do anything. Like one of the boys, because I used to teach at Rose Bridge, one of the boys remembers all the stuff we used to do in the training at school, and he's now teaching in Dubai, where he said with what you did sort of inspired us to do it. So you can do anything, they can go anywhere and achieve anything. So that's sort of what we're all trying to do, and just give these kids better lives.
I've always said that there's something around, I've said it before even on one of these podcasts, that there's something around the sporting sector. As you know, in Wigan, there's a lot of focus on community wealth building, so keeping money local. And I've always said that, like, the rugby sector, especially of all the sports out there, because of that kind of, call it buy local nature. I know Wigan Athletic hopefully doing that now, fingers crossed, where there's a lot of youngsters coming through, but especially with rugby and Wigan Warriors and that approach to knowing that if you're a young person and you want to think, that's great, we've got Phil Clark coming on later, so if you want to be the next Phil Clark, who one minute you see on television, next thing you see on there, and you think, I could be that person. When I was growing up on Simkin Street in Abram, and I grew up in Abram, I used to see Andy Gregory walk down the road. I know my brother had his windows done by Andy Farrell, and it's like, and then later on in the day you'd see these people on television, and we don't have that in like the culture sector in Wigan. We don't have that in any other sector where we see.
Do you remember Andy Pillin on Vicarage Road? Andy Pillin.
I should. Show me age. You're probably about 10 years younger than me. I'm probably. Yeah. And but that's the thing, isn't it? Those young people. And for me, when we look at for young people, I know we were talking before, Hannah, about obviously schools and that. There's something around the rugby sector and that pathway between, you know, like your club and then St. Pat's and then Wigan Warriors, to know that as a community wealth building point of view, if you want to stay in Wigan and work in Wigan, there's a career in rugby, and hopefully football's doing that. I know it's lost its identity on it over the past with
I think
money
it's great
coming in,
with Danson taking over Wigan Athletic, Wigan football. There's a sense of it's going to be hard, but what he's trying to achieve there is saying we need each other. Both sports need each other in Wigan, and we can piggyback off each sports to progress. So,
and the fact that he's renamed a stadium, I mean, we do a lot of work with the Brick, you know, as part of our enterprise network, and I've spoken to Keely from the Brick a few times about it, and it's amazing that that people have actually turned around and thought, you know, you look how many football clubs and rugby clubs are owned by or sponsored by betting companies, and you think Wigan's taken a chance here to say we're going to name our stadium after a local charity, social enterprise. It's amazing, really, frankly. And I just kind of think there's something, you're right, with what Mike Dance and everything's doing. So I mean, do you see some of this stuff now in your work, Hannah? Because it's interesting that obviously we've got rugby and football here today, but I'm thinking about places like Garswood Hall bowling. It's amazing, some of these other sports.
Yeah, so going round, there's already so much happening with everybody. Everyone you go into, whether it's just small and who they've got or whether they've got dreams to make it bigger, they work so hard for their community they've already got. And every sports club has got its own community. What would be great to see is like what they're trying to do is there's sports who can't have their own facility. So your badminton, your tennis ish, your netball, your rounders. A lot of rounders teams are collaborating with cricket clubs, is bringing those sports together. So you're bringing different parts of the community together. So like what rugby and football are doing, and then bringing in the Brick as a community organisation as well, is what needs to happen in micro pockets now within the borough. And if you can start bringing those together and looking forward, is any investment or facilities going in is make them multi-sports facilities. So you might have your clubhouse, but okay, is there any way we can add on a sports hall so you can bring in your indoor sports and make it part, you know, like if we can have that vision moving forward for sports club, you're going to bring in so much more of the community, so many more opportunities. If you start linking up with education in terms of bringing in people who are at Wigan League College to do sports physio opportunities at the sports clubs that are running, to do data analysis, you're showing everybody where sport can lead you, and it's not just playing sport. It does give you that physical aspect, which everybody knows. Everybody has it rammed down their throats that you need to exercise 3 times a week. But actually, if you're socially active, that leads to being physically active. And you've got to get people out, no matter what age they are, what their interests are. If you can get people working with us in the community, they will become physically active. And if we can look at opportunities, and if there is a building being put up or an indoor facilities, okay, that's great for us, but how can we make it great for somebody else as well? And that facility then is going to be used 7 days a week, and giving so many people the opportunity, because there's so many other sports clubs within the borough who roll on just the same as these guys, but they have to rent off the council, they have to go to Robin Park, or they have to rent off a school for their sports hall. How do we bring those into the sector as well? How do we get them showing what they can do, and when they're sort of restricted to school opening times or the caretaker being around, how do we make them not more important, as important as the clubs that you see driving around? And how that's kind of where I'm scoping, and I'm looking at ways to do that, but also ways to get other parts of the community. So like over at St John's Playing Field, we're looking at a community garden now, nothing to do with football. It's got a nice bit of space there that we can bring other people of the community in to support. And if you just look at little options like that, you're just opening up opportunities.
And I think that's key in it. We were saying before we started doing the podcast that I always say when I grew up I wanted to be a coal miner because that's what my dad did, or I wanted to play for Liverpool Football Club. I was never I lost one industry because the industry of coal mines shut down, and obviously I was never good enough to play football. My nephew now, who I was hoping to come on the podcast today but he can't make it, is the assistant manager at Laithwaite Park now, and I was saying to him recently, like I said, that's an amazing job that I'd love to have had, to have worked in the sporting sector but doing something like that where you, and for me there's something around, like look at yourself, John, and I know all the sports stuff you do, but grounds maintenance has been a big massive, and obviously for yourself, Dean, obviously, and for me there's something around, like say all those backroom bits, which not just like say the people who could do the key bits around things like the grounds maintenance.
The biggest struggle for any club is volunteers. And we've already done getting players and getting kids is probably the easy bit. It's getting them trusted volunteers who can push on and get the vision and the mission of where you're going as a club.
But from that, it's the time. People haven't got the time, and volunteering doesn't pay bills. That's the problem. People have to work more to make more, because the problem at the minute, work's not paying for people, so they've got to work more to afford things, and that's it, the volunteering sector, because people can't volunteer or give the time up to coach teams and run teams and volunteer at clubs, and without that the clubs don't run, because everything what you need to do to prepare the surfaces for the matches and the environment, everything like that, the changing rooms, everything needs time and people.
It goes to the
do
same people, doesn't it? You're the same few doing more. But no, I just wanted to hit on what John was saying about he's developing, he wants his own space. We're kind of fortunate that we have got that. We have got an indoor 4G dome. We have got a bit of training, but because we have invested in that multi-sport, not just football, rugby, we've got fishing teams, darts, dominance pools. So like you said, through the week, our club is open 7 days a week. Things like warm and welcoming spaces with Wigan Council, things like that we're tapping into. But the actual footprint that we have got as a club now is too small for us. And early last year we went for an application for the new Home Advantage programme through the FA, the Football Foundation, and we were selected from one out to I think there's 19 out of 72 clubs been selected. We've been on this now for 11 months, doing all the foundation course, setting your club right. So setting the club as a limited company now. So the cask that we're currently under, we're looking at merging that, charity status, and hopefully in the next month or so we'll be acquiring the Rose Bridge fields. It's with the Department of Education now, and we've got £250,000 grant to redevelop them fields as multi-sports fields for football and rugby. So you can see, working together, how we can make really good things happen in the community and tap into having more kids. We've got kids playing football on a Saturday and then playing football on the Sunday. It's that kind of that crossover that a kid, you shouldn't home a kid in when they're young on one sport. Try them at everything, and we're luckily enough what we're building does give them that option to stay within our club to kind of progress. So we are, even though we have got a little bit more, we've still got the same struggles of you. We're overcrowded at the minute with limited facilities, and it is hard as a club. It's hard explaining to your members, just hold fire, this is what we're getting, and trying to get that culture, because culture isn't brought overnight. Culture is something you try every day, and you have to push and you have to tell people what it is every day. So no, I just thought it was, even though you wanted your own space, we're kind of at a point where we need more space. So it's that kind of how far you go, there's still struggles, there's still that pushing of what's next.
Well, for us, what we're looking is something like you've got with your dome,
Yep.
and to have an indoor space, and like you say, at the minute we're having to hire facilities, so all the money's going out of the club because of that. Now, if we had our indoor space, we could run everything from there, and run more, and then bring in other people to hire it externally as well, which brings more money into the club and allows the club.
But we found out our early years, from 2 years to 6, they don't want to train outside. They're like an indoor facility. So where everyone fails in the local borough of getting these minis to come in winter, because they don't want to go on the field full of mud, and we've got that safe space, what's the dome, and I think that's how can we get a lot of kids coming, because it's that safe, warm space. It's on 52 weeks a year, and people just come on a kind of, there's no subscriptions, they just turn up. We know what kids are like. Some mornings they want to wake up, some mornings they don't, so it's that having that there on every Sunday. So there is, I think there's a lot of synergies between every sporting team and club in the borough. We all want the same things, and I think it's a very selfless job that you do. It's the kids, it's all about the kids, it's all about their development. And I think when you have presentations or one of your kids kind of excels or something, it's such a proud moment for the person who's put behind the scenes, who's been putting that effort in. And rarely do we get the praise, but it's us ourselves praising ourselves, thinking this is what we do it for.
For me, seeing them on the pitch and seeing them play on the pitch and enjoying it, and us, like we had about 50, 60 parents the other week just watching them play, and for the kids that's huge for them. And it's just like everyone just so proud of them, putting on a performance for everybody, and you're just seeing that growth and development. One of the lads, when he first came, wouldn't even get out of the car. His auntie had to sort of drag him over. He wouldn't want to come, and then it was like, will you walk him onto the pitch, because he won't walk onto the pitch. Now he's his first one there, beaming, and he's ringing his friends up, telling them all, he's telling all his family about it. So you just create that cycle of change, and that pride, and that you can the power of sport can change people's lives, and it's
small
and you're seeing it in front of your eyes. That's the rewarding, the beneficial thing.
I think that's the thing, that we've always said that. We mentioned it a lot about this line of sight, like I said before, when I said about the coal mines before, and that's what we said about the sport. And I know part of the Proper Good programme we have, we've got the money there. We've got about 5.5 million of social investment between Wigan, Oldham, Bolton and Stockport for the next so many years. And we know there's challenges with this sector, the social enterprise sector, around social investment. The people see it as a bit of a risk, but we've always felt that what we really need to do is start to really get an infrastructure based sorted first. So what is it going to be in Wigan Borough? I shared with somebody recently an article around the Paris Olympics, and how when the Paris Olympics took place, and I assume the Paralympics later on today, and that they've really embraced social enterprise. And so for me, the role that sport can play, something as big as the Olympics or something like that. So it's interesting that, because when you mentioned before about the space you've got on both, you've obviously got the space. I know that you've got loads of groups you work with Hannah who are keen on space. That there's not, for me, there's something around the role that the sports clubs in every neighbourhood could do in terms of supporting us to actually get. Because when you're talking about builders, I'm thinking we've got Proper Good here. We need to be kind of working with you. I know Wigan Sport Club, and there's a few others who've started to contact us. So has there been anything around social investment that have you looked at that as an option before, or have you kind of not known about it, or have you heard about it, have you thought no?
Well, we again, you can only do one job at a time. There's a small amount of us that's doing quite a lot, so it's concentrating on what we do. We know there's many funding avenues out there, especially when we go to charity status. We've already had some companies approach us and said, when you're a charity status, we've got stuff in our environmental social governance that we can link in with you and we can put back into the community. So we know there's grants there, but it's getting them dedicated people. We've tried to put out there for a grant specialist. We've tried to work to I think we even asked you, Anna, at one point, can you help us with someone who can do grants for us? Because it all falls on the same people. We've tried to basically put vacancies out for all these different voluntary roles, and we've had nothing back. And it's very hard that you just end up doing everything yourself. And it's what's like, priority one today.
I think a lot of people are happy to volunteer if it's terms of like, oh, you've got a day, I've got a free day, I'll come down, I'll help you paint your changing rooms, or on match day I'm bringing my child anyway, so I'll be subs collector or things like that, and people are happy to do that. But like you say, when it's part of running the club, it's like another job in itself, and it's how can you get enough people to spread the roles enough so then it's not a big part of your add-on to the day.
It's also having those qualities to do it as well. You need the ability to do it. So some people couldn't do the roles what you sort of want them to do. So it's having someone who can specialise in it and have the time to actually volunteer.
We've got people, John, at our place that Ince Rose Bridge that they're untapped. So we had some on the week we were doing the ground maintenance, and we had to qualify 2 of our groundsmen to level 1 qualified, and the guy just appeared, James. He was doing bowling greens. He's got it all qualified. He's there, right under our nose for 2 years. And I think we have got people who's untapped in the club, solicitors. These were these skills, not sports skill, not like who's played sports and can coach. These people behind the scenes. And it's how do we tap into these people at your own club?
And sometimes you've got to be completely honest. You need to just put it out there. We need somebody who understands X, Y, and Z. Put your hand up. It's a one-off job for us. Yep. Anybody willing to do it, and they might do it, but it's also knowing who within the Wigan and Lee borough might also be willing to do that, like what other organisations are out there, which is something I've been looking at. So there's street games, there's all different types of organisations. It's just knowing where to go, and certainly like for grants and things like that, you have to have a specific skill set to access that money, and that I think that's a massive barrier. Especially if you've got a well-established clubs who are already working there, and then you've got to jump through the 50 hoops and prove, your blood type in order to get a grant when they've already shown the worth. It's not some new up-and-coming person that you're like, what are they going to do with this money? It's pretty obvious where this money is going to be going. So in another way, it's working with the funders to say, it could be a phone call. Have you got this, this and this in place? What are you doing with it? Great, okay.
And it's about who you know and establishing relationships as well. Obviously, we've got a good relationship with Wigan Council. We're doing some crowdfunding for the machinery grant for buy tractor, and just speaking to these people, our local MPs, the people working with Michael Fishwick for the land. Just little things like, do you know we match fund? Today we've been accepted for match funding. It's just being in this that we put the application, knowing and working with these people.
But
and
that
having a relationship.
Takes time on top of your own.
It does.
Your own role, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's combining every sort of role to do it all. That's the issue. So you're trying to do that and trying to do that.
Spinning plates.
It's just spinning plates all the time. And when you stop,
I think as well when we went to a limited company, we had to have trustees. Now Phil, who's coming in shortly, he's one of our trustees, and again today, before we come in here, you guys, have you heard about this? All about social well-being. He's very big on that. What can we do for the community? So it's great having these people in place. Himself, Mike, who owns Pall Mall, someone away from the club with this big vision and this helicopter view that say, here guys, have we done this? And also Geordie Tewson, she's away from the club, and she's got contacts, and we can go to them when we need a little bit of advice, because we're so far down the coal mine that we don't really look up sometimes. So Phil will probably comment on his role, what he's been doing.
And I think that's key, and we've noticed this a lot with when the last 10 years since the social enterprise sector started to grow, and we've started to see a lot more trading charities become part of the sector. But we've always seen a lot of our sector probably have been reliant on one person. And when they do have, say, 2 or 3 other people as co-directs or whatever, they've usually been chosen because there's a need straight away to, I need to get funding, I need a second signatory. And I know something that we started to do some years ago, and obviously clearly listening to you guys, the same there, which is that board skill analysis is needed, because you're right, it's not just about, you know, the day-to-day stuff. There's funding, there's legal stuff, there's all the health and safety stuff, there's knowing. And when I've looked at some of the social enterprises, charities, etc. across the borough, you know, you have to look at some of the really successful ones who've been growing over the years, like, you know, the Brick, Wigan Youth, so on. You look at the amount of board skill diversity they've got, and that is key to a lot. And that's one thing that we've always said to a lot of social enterprises when they set up, and I know it's part of the Proper Good programme, and I know with some of the groups who we've been looking at who've been applying for some of the social investment, you know, because it is a repayable, mainly repayable finance fund, the risk has always been seen from the funder to say, we need to make sure now there's a resilience here, and part of what's been seen has been, we need to really check first, have you got that board skill diversity? So it's fascinating to see groups now start to realise that, you know, because you know,
it's that pushing back. Sometimes we're very, very willing to take a volunteer because they have got time, but that volunteer might be the wrong volunteer for the wrong job. But we take them on just because they say, I can help the club out. And I think, obviously, being on the FA programmes that they've done, we need to basically screen volunteers, not just DBS checks, but their actual set of skills, so they are actually going on a job and they can push us forward. So it's that different way of thinking, how you take your volunteers on and what roles.
Very much so, yeah.
So in terms of your role, how what do you see your role? What's your next plan for your role? Because it was GM Moving, wasn't it, if I'm right? It came from GM Moving funding, did it? I know you said test and learn funding. I know it's because other areas in GM are doing similar.
So my funding's come through 10 GM.
10 GM, yeah.
So, and I'm here 12, 18 months initially because I'm grant funded as well. So everything I do, I want it to have a legacy. So I could rock up to somebody's club and help out, and then I'd be like, bye. Well, that's not sustainable either, you know. So it's taking away this information and feeding it back to whoever will listen and whoever could make a difference. So knowing that people are struggling with grants, people are struggling with the funding side, is having those conversations and networking on behalf of these guys, because they haven't got time to go and network with each other than at fixtures maybe, but even then you're staying within your sport. So you're networking at fixtures with other clubs, but you're not networking outside your club. So my job is to go and listen to them all and then name drop to other clubs. Oh, such a body's looking for that. Why don't you pair up together and apply for some funding together? And then you might be able to get a bigger pot instead of both of you going in for an application. Join together, make a big application. So networking on behalf of these guys and seeing the issues they've got, and like I say, finding out what Proper Good's doing, finding out what GM Moving's got, and taking that information. And if I can just link some people up with the right people, then I find like my role has been successful. If I can get some other part of the community active at the same time, then that's kind of where we need to end up. So if, like we're doing at John's, if we can get some of the community not necessarily going playing football, but being out and being active through gardening, then again, that's another way we're helping that social investment and saving, you know, the NHS money at the end of the day, because we all know being outside and active helps with depression, you know, mobility, and it'll all snowball if the train's on the right tracks.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that's it. It's getting people in active, getting volunteers in to support it. Like you said, getting funding in from funding providers, from business, in sponsorship and ways like that. The more funding and more people you get involved, the more you can do, and the more you can sort of build and develop, both with your facility and both with what you can offer in terms of sport, pitches, other sports. You can diversify everything and support more people by doing it. It's just getting your facility, your funding and people in. Once you get people in, you'll get more people in, hopefully, to volunteer and, like you said, snowball and build something in your community and develop your community. I know you, Dave, have always said about wanting people not to just drive for Abram, but somewhere to go there. That's what we want to do, so people will come and drive to Abram for something. So, and if you build that facility, then you're offering that for everyone, just be able somewhere to go, a destination to go.
It's looking where you're lacking as well. I know when we was talking is maybe surveys in your area. What would you like in this area? And have a look if we can play into that. And then you've got the backup because you've got the community who wants something and you can maybe provide it. So we're working with the local councillors in Ince, because before they get voted and that they go round and they say what is it, surveys, and trying to tap into them surveys and seeing what can we do as a club to try to kind of alleviate this problem or to give them something. Some might be impossible for us, but if we've got that information from the community, we can always use that to kind of strengthen our bid to get funding and said our community wants this. So it's that
and that's
kind of...
a lot of where I come in as well, because I'm on the ground listening to this sort of information, and I can say, oh, if you go down to Ince Rose Bridge community, they might be able to help you with this issue. Well, you guys wouldn't be there because you can't. You've got your job, you've got your fixtures, you've got your board meetings, you've got everything else to do.
It's like today. This is my dinner over at work.
That was said when I was. It makes me laugh because I was kind of thinking, and obviously you guys will know this, with the Abram ward area, that when I was a kid growing up, like say in Abram, on the Simpkins Street estate, where through Ruskin Crescent and that. Me and my mates used to use, because we didn't really have any facilities nearby for us to do sport or anything. We had a school field, obviously. But we always laugh about it because we used, like we call it the blocks, around the block. So from Simpkins Street round to Ruskin. And that was our probably big size 400 metre track. And we used to literally run round, and then we used to find, we actually found like a broken shopping trolley. I think it was Quick Save back in the day in Blackbridge. Broken shopping trolley, we used that as a baton, and that was our relay. And then, as you know, in the middle of the Abram ward estate on there, you've got what we used to call the secret passage right in the middle, and that used to be in that little green patch. Used to be where we used to go get a clothes prop or something, and that would be like a javelin and that. And that's what I mean. We just use those
and
spaces.
The bonfires were there as well.
Yeah,
the bonfire
right.
nights.
But we use those outdoor spaces, and we don't have those.
No.
But it's nice that every neighbourhood now, and that's what I've always felt like you guys and.
It is, and it's making that, I'd spend my summers out on my bike during the summer holidays. You don't really see that as much now, just because the roads are busier. Children are not necessarily at home as much because they're in holiday clubs, things like that. But if sports clubs could provide that opportunity where they've got the big outdoor space, there's these tracks you can have put around the edges of pitches. They could double up as a bike track, or a running track, or whatever it might be. So just giving them somewhere to go and showing that social value and showing them respect. Kids are going to cause mischief. It's just what's going to happen. Everybody did it. It's just how much mischief and how much they respect the area that they're in. And if there's one person who then goes against the grain, they'll generally stop, because everybody's like, nah, we're not, we don't buy that here. And it's building that culture within the club as well, and providing that place to go.
And it's interesting, we were saying before, we were chatting before about the Olympics, and obviously how it's nice to see the modern sports now, like your breakdancing and your BMXing, skateboarding, compared to but I was saying to Hannah before about you do wonder by the next 10, 12 years whether the likes of esports will suddenly start to be in it, because and you kind of do wonder whether or not, because you saw it probably in lockdown, whether it's FIFA or whether it's the F1 game and stuff like that. And it's fascinating how, and I don't know if there are plans to have an esports arena in Wigan. I don't know whether these things are true or not, but I don't know. And it's fascinating how that side of, but then having said that, though, the mental well-being side of it, so about being outdoors and that, we have to appreciate that esports is there, and people can do this on the. Back in the day, we used to have the Commodore 64 with Daley Thompson decathlon. I remember that back in the day.
It's like even with us with the disability, when we started that up, we was actually told there is no funding for this. There's no funding, and it wasn't about funding for us. So Mark, our chairman, he put his own money in there for sponsor it, for do it, and then we got NISA Local. They've got a massive grant scheme there. He's Gaz off Ince. He's done a lot for us, and he sponsored the disabilities. Now we're thriving. So I think sometimes people do stuff maybe for the grant process, but sometimes there isn't no grant process, and you have to have a reason why you're doing it. So it's some sports you get, or some events you get the funding for, others you don't, and you have to just weigh up the decision why you're actually doing this. Is it for the grant funding, or is it because it's lacking this in this area?
But like you said, it's about what we can do and support the community as well. So where we want them to come and use our facilities as someone to do. You've got to support the community as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Mental health's a massive one with suicide rates and things like that. As clubs and as organisations, we need to be supporting people in it within our communities. We've had a couple of suicides from there, and I know Ince has had quite a few as well. So it's like, what can we do to support people as well? Not just sporting people, but people just with a mental health. So I know you funded with a council with us of a men's club to get up and going, just to give them somewhere to go for a few hours to play board games, use the indoor space that we've got, just to support people and give them somewhere to go or somewhere to talk. So it's about us supporting people from any walk of life within our community, from sporting to non-sporting to anything, just to get people involved. And it's again changing lives and saving lives more than anything. So it's about, we need to offer more and we need support to do it.
So the integration, obviously predominantly rugby over the years, there's big grassroots rivalries. Ince Rose Bridge, St Pat's, very much kind of
You're one or the other.
Yes, it is. You're over the canal. Do you know what I mean? You have one team over the canal. But we've over the last 2 or 3 years, my daughter plays for Hindley in the under-16s. I think it's a brilliant club. We get on with Baz, who runs it. Me and Mark meet him, talking about what works, and the relationship by working with other grassroots clubs is massive, because you've both got the same struggles. I know Mark's reached out to St Pat's. They've reached back. It's about getting rid of the stigma of rivalry and just working together to achieve something. Some clubs do kind of take that. Others, it's the rival, but it's not at management level. It's the players underneath that don't want it, because there's always that rivalry. Have you got that rivalry in football?
Well, you have with all of the clubs who you're all wanting to beat each other and all thing, and then you get players who want to beat each other and stuff like that. So it's with certainly in Ince, you've got like the clubs there which are all main rivals, and then you've got other clubs just down the road where football we're probably more spread out. But certainly in fixtures, you all want to beat each other, but you should be able to go.
I feel like it's when you see a club struggling, when you see the clubhouse not up, when you see they've not got Sky TV on and this and that, it's a bit demoralising, because you want to help out, you don't want to see clubs drop off, because healthy clubs in the area is good competition.
The thing is, if you don't have the opposition, you don't have the game.
Exactly.
You've got no one to play, so you need.
And it also then leads
clubs.
you another club with a problem with too many players, and how many teams can you put out?
Yeah.
So you need everybody to be of a balance, and I think that's where working together is going to come. But it's providing that opportunity when you are all doing it on top of everything else you've got going on in your lives.
Well, we work with, just an example, we work with Hindley. My daughter plays for the 16s. We started a new section at Rose Bridge called Rose Bridge Pamphoresses after Bill Ashurst, who passed away. He played for Penrith Panthers, so we renamed the girls Rose Bridge Pamphoresses. And we got a very successful 12s and 14s this year in the season, but we couldn't quite make a 16s. We had 4 or 5 girls. So we rung up Baz, we said, we've got 4 or 5 girls here. Can we collaborate together? I know you're short of a few girls at your 16s. So we worked together, and he housed them 5 girls for us. We had to shut that age group down, but he happily took them on board and did it. And it makes you think that what we did wasn't for the clubs, it was for them 5 girls to carry on playing the sport.
And for his girls to have a stronger team.
Exactly. So
by collaborating.
You think about how many situations in the borough that clubs can help clubs. And the main reason to doing it is the members, is the kids, is the older generation. What can we do together to give them to give them some benefit in the community? Because, like I said, these clubhouses, we've got Hindley, Ince Rose Bridge, Pat's, even a mile in between them. It's the same community. It's the same community.
Like you said, it's just across the canal.
That's it.
That's all it is.
So it's what can we do together to enhance the Wigan Borough, not just Ince, not just it's strengthening our community, because better lifestyle, better well-being, longer lifespan, keeping your brain active. If it's not physical activity, I think Hannah, you just spoke about mental activity, that's what keeps ticking and keeps you going. So it's
and the friendships and the positive role models and everything what comes from being part of a team.
I think last night we've got a big volunteer push about painting the changing rooms. We had one man, the label could shut down. We keep the club open just for him, and there's about 3 or 4 of them to have his pint of miles to come in, sit, talk to. It loses money that night, it loses money that way, but it's not about losing money. It's about giving them somewhere to just sit down and have a chat once
Get
every
out
couple
the house
That's
and,
it.
and see
That's
the
it.
friends. And not only that, if he doesn't turn up for a week, somebody's going to go.
That's it.
Where,
And you sell mild? You say
where is
mild?
it?
Miles on.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I know a few people keep asking me about, is there any place that sell mild? You don't seem to sell it these days. So
It's probably
I can say, get yourself to Ince.
yeah,
There you
it's one
are.
of the cheapest pints around, but
Yeah.
we still get backlash if we put 5p on it or 10p. But it's the cheapest pint around.
we did that with the walking football when we first started. I think we were getting 6 to 8 people, but we said for these 6 to 8 people, it's vital for them.
Yeah.
They get so much, and we said we just have to subsidise it we can't stop it because they rely on it, and we've had the lads saying the change in the father, like the difference in him. One lad said, "I've got my dad back." It's like the difference what he created, that he got his life back from it.
There's a lady, you might know, she used to run the book, Donna.
Yeah,
She used to have a book. Said she actually had her first meeting at Ince Rose Bridge yesterday. They do this walking, don't they? They do this kind
The
of
Wigan Angels group.
The Wigan Angels. They started yesterday at the club.
Yeah,
so
so they used to work out of William Foster's,
Yes.
but financially it wasn't possible to carry on.
Right, so you know a lot
Dropped
about.
your name in there.
Oh, thank you. So that's it was the first meeting yesterday, and they came and they enjoyed.
Yeah,
But
so
that's
a female version of Andy Mann's club
Okay.
sort of thing. So it's somewhere where they'll
Thanks for that. Thank you. I didn't know you was
They'll
involved
go-
with that.
Does the job well?
where they'll go and do crafts. If they want to do crafts, just sit and chat with a brew, whatever it is, and then once a week they run walking
Yep.
little activities just to get people out and about. But yeah, very much so, like nothing to do with sport, but they needed a space, and it provides a space, doesn't it? So
Thank you for that. It was-
So I'm going to pause it there.
yeah.
Right. Thanks everybody to coming in. So we've still got John here from Wigan Cosmos. I'd like to introduce Mark
Alder, Ince Rose Bridge Sports and Community Club Chairman.
And Phil Clark, Ince Rose Bridge Sports and Community Trustee. I'm very proud to be that.
Yeah, amongst many things. So we were saying before, obviously, when we started talking about the role, we've basically been talking about sport and the role that sport plays in the community, etc. But it's interesting the role that sport plays in terms of reducing inequalities. So I was fascinated. Dean mentioned before about the Ince Rugby programme. You got a learning disability programme. Do you want to explain a bit more? Because it sounds fascinating that's that programme.
Yeah, we come about it. We have obviously junior rugby. We had a family. We've got 2 sons. One plays for, I think it was under 11s at the time, and they had a lad who's obviously got some learning disabilities. So they reached out to us and said, "Could we look at it?" Which we did. We had a meeting with Wigan Warriors, Wigan Council over at Robin Park, and Wigan Athletic about doing something. Then went back to the club, and then reached out to IFL saying like what did we need to do and stuff. They come back saying you won't get funded. So it's not about funding, it was about giving these kids the opportunities that they're not getting, and would look at ways of doing it. Since now I think it's about 9, 10 months, 11 months in, it's going really well. We reached out through like sponsors and stuff to get the kids out and stuff, and it is going really well. It's growing pretty well, and it's looking at like the kids when they're doing the sessions and stuff. I think they've got a game this week at Inley with a team, so it's giving them kids the opportunities that they never felt part of a team. And as a club, we were trying to be all inclusive for all walks of life and to open the doors to everyone. So that's really gone well so far, and it's growing on a regular occurrence, like weekly.
Because I know it fascinates. Obviously, you'll know this, Phil, with your background. With obviously, I do a lot of. We have Embrace Wigan and Lee base in our building, and I'm going back. I would say it's probably early 2010s. There was a programme that embraced it, and you was the ambassador, I think, Phil, which was Never Watch Alone. So you'll obviously have a first hand as well of seeing the role that football to a degree, but certainly rugby seems to be playing in terms of supporting people with disabilities. So
I think it was a fantastic campaign, and I was only saddened that it didn't grow nationally. It was people with a variety of difficulties who perhaps for one reason or another couldn't get along to a sporting match, rugby or football, and the clubs managed to buddy them up with somebody who was generally a season ticket holder who wanted to volunteer and get involved, and they started to go to the game together. And it was so successful, sitting in a room watching people who'd met for the first time perhaps a year earlier, had gone to watch a season of sport together, and formed an amazing connection and bond to such an extent that very often they would go around and spend Christmas Day meals together. It was so successful. And I think Wigan Athletic and Wigan Rugby did remarkably well with that. And I was so pleased that the Embrace charity managed to have so much success on the back of it.
Yeah, it just fascinates because I think, like I say, there's always been something around. Like I say, the role that sport plays. I was saying previous to the others that there's something around, specifically with rugby and hopefully and certainly with football now with that kind of buy local culture that for people in the local community. And I was telling people before about when I used to grow up in Abram and I used to see Andy Gregory, see people like that walk down the road and then eventually see him on television at night time, and there's something around that role that it plays. So it's fascinating with you guys because both of you guys are on the board, are you, of Ince Rugby? Is that right?
Yeah, so
how did you get involved then into it? Are you from Ince?
I'm originally an Ince lad. Mum and dad still live at the same house I was born in. I got involved about 10, 15 years ago, roughly as a sponsor to support, because I have my own business to support teams. Because it took me back to when I was a kid. I remember one of our coaches, Wayne Boyd, said, "You need to go home and ask your dad for 45 quid. I thought there's no chance. So I went and I saved my own money up doing paper rounds and stuff. So through Ince St William School, I got asked would I consider sponsoring some junior teams, and we did. And then it's just gone from there over 8 years really. Now my lad plays, he's gone through many bridges from 2-year-old. He's now playing under 12s rugby. And he plays for Wigan Town football as well now. He's also part of the club. So it's going really well.
Well, my involvement goes back because I was very fortunate. I've had a lifetime of enjoyment from rugby, and it primarily goes back to when I was 11 years of age. Some volunteers in the Ince area decided to set up a team, which is now Ince Rose Bridge, and so playing there for several years, I've had a connection to the club for from that time. 20 odd years ago they were involved in a Sport England bid to build an indoor facility which is still there, and I helped to support then. And more recently the club approached me and I saw what they were doing, connecting with football, becoming a multi-club, offering all sorts of services for all sorts of generations as well, really, from young to old. And when they asked me would I be a trustee, it was a no-brainer. I wanted to be involved. I mean, a wise man once said to me, life's like a bank account and sometimes you need put in. And so, obviously it's now the right time for me to try and put something back into it, which is supporting the great work that everyone's doing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And from that kind of like local football, I know we were saying the other week about, I think there was a period when certainly when Wigan Athletic were in the Premier League, where you've got the wages and a lot of and it did feel like for me then that Wigan as yes, on one hand you got a lot of local people thinking like, I'll start supporting Wigan and not just Liverpool or Man United, but it did feel like that pathway from young person to Wigan Athletic maybe was lost kind of thing compared to what it is from local to Wigan Warriors. But speaking to the other week about Mike Danson and the whole Wigan Athletic, does it, I know you're a season ticket fan, aren't you? Wigan Athletic, do you?
Well, that's it. Well, when I was growing up, we go to Springfield Park and you go into the clubhouse after, and all the players are in the clubhouse. As you got more success, those players would no longer, well, it all changed when we moved to the stadium and everything, but you had that disconnect between the players and the club because they wouldn't live in the area, they said live in Manchester, and you're talking about multi-millionaires, so they wouldn't be in the area, in the environment. So it's a massive difference. So your Premier League of football, you're bringing people in from wherever on massive wages who are multi-millionaires who don't particularly live in the area. Some might live close by and some live further afield, and they maybe didn't buy into being here as much. Now there's quite a few who come when the charity games went under on. Quite a few players will come back. So you've got your different sort of players. It depends on the type of person that you've got. Now we went to one where Mario Melchiot came across and played in the charity games. Roberto Martinez always comes back. So you've got certain types of people and characters who will come back and invest. I think Roberto still lives in Wigan and he's now the Portugal manager. So it's like he bought it, but from Dave Whelan, and he bringing people in, and again you've got to get the right people in, the right characters who will buy into the town and put, just as you said, put things back. It's putting things back into your community, and just for inspiring people and motivating them, so then they can go on and aspire to be just like them. I think that's the key in any sport, really.
I think the most important thing that that I've realised in recent years is what sport helps you to deal with. Obviously, there's the activity and that, but life is full of wins and losses and ups and downs and setbacks. And I think as a young person, when I look back now at my time playing rugby, I think some weeks we won, some weeks we lost, and the resilience you have to build, not getting too excited when you win, managing and balancing your emotions there, and that is such an important lesson for life, because everybody, however successful or unsuccessful they are, will have ups and downs. They'll have wins and losses, if we could equate it back to a sport in football or rugby. And I think coping with that is probably the greatest thing that a team sport can teach to a young person.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, from that, yeah, because in sport, you're either you've lost and you're there, or you've won and you're up there. There's no, we're all right here. And life's like that. You're either, things are going great, and some, again, we've talked about mental health before, but people have not got the resilience and can't cope when things go against them. But sport can teach you that resilience, and it's character building a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's, so in terms of like we were saying before about obviously the roles that sports could play, obviously not just, you know, in terms of sport. And one thing that's fascinated with your work, John, has been the work you're doing around sustainability and environment. So do you want to, because it's not just obviously the football side, and I mentioned about mental well-being, but you've got some really great...
We're members, like part of the FA system, what you've got into now so we're members of the GMA, so you'll have got your, to do the pitches, they'll join that. So we go to Saltex every year, and we saw what sort of Spurs were doing at their training ground when we went to talk and watch what they were doing, and they put a kitchen garden in. So basically that's feeding the club. So all the players will, or they want the players to take part in it, but all the food, what's made there, is then used at the club, so it's sustainable. Everything that they've done is reused and reusable. So we thought, well, we can do that on a smaller scale. We can put a kitchen garden in, so we can get people in to work on the garden. We can grow all our own fruit and veg. When we do get the clubhouse, we can then teach people to cook it, because again, at schools they're not learning these skills. And if you're not learning these skills to just basically feed yourself or be able to take food from here and do that, certainly with the cost of living and everything, we can play a role there to grow it, enjoyment of growing it, learn to cook it, and then bring in kids to get this lifelong connection with nature. I watched Yellowstone, and it said the problem was when we start living on the planet and not living with the planet, and that things like that at home. It's like without nature we don't survive, and we've got to all work together on the planet. So for us, it's developing and getting these kids into the nature. Mental health wise, it's a massive. We need people, that connection. We've lost that connection. And then when you look at all the training grounds and complexes, what they're building, which are developed, St George's Park and at Spurs and all these ones, they're all connected with nature. So if they're saying this is best for millionaire football players, an environment like this, then this is the right environment for people to grow up in. So it's about connection with nature, with plants, animals. We're getting wildflowers in. So then you're creating a biodiverse environment which will support nature, life and people, learning to work together and work in it and work with it, and then getting people to get involved in it and taking it forwards, and just that love of being in nature. So you can get different generations, so grandparents working with their grandchildren, teaching them how to do it, because we found, again, because of work and commitments and things like that, people aren't spending that quality time with the children or grandchildren. So we can sort of facilitate that and get them this connection of you teaching them how to do it, of passing on skills from elders again, so that, and then sort of regenerating your communities and rebuilding communities and people together of all generations, where we do look after our communities and develop it all. So that's the dream what we have with it all.
Yeah, it's really fascinating to see, and it's we were saying before about obviously within our sector, the voluntary community faith source enterprise sector, there is definitely a growing number, and I think that's the great thing about with the sport, in terms of it is really in neighbourhoods. And I know I had a meeting yesterday where we were talking about the culture, and I know we are looking at doing a podcast in the future around the culture, arts and culture side of it, and it still doesn't feel like that pathway is there. Like, you know, if a child wanted to be on the West End or something, it's still, if you're a little kid in Abram or Bridge or Ince, it's like, yeah, I can't be on. But there's, like I said, there's something there about sport, and there's something there about that neighbourhood stuff that just really connected together, and it's fascinating listening to Hannah about her vision and her role. So where do you guys see in the next 5 to 10 years your work? Where do you see Ince going next? Because you're not just doing, you're doing so much stuff.
In Ince Rose Bridge, it's kind of like we're growing bigger and bigger. We're obviously working on the IMP project and also looking at multiple sites for the future, because the more we're pushing stuff in either sport or anything within the club, it just seems to be rolling out and growing. So it's like trying to look further ahead with certain people like Tony Allen. The football's already looking at other sites for us as well as the IMP, because with football it'll grow rapid when as soon as we open up. We're not really pushing recruitment till we get the IMP, because we haven't got the facilities at the minute, the fields, but it's a scary prospect that it will fly out, and like I say, once the IMP's through, that helps, but we're soon going to outgrow that, and that's why we're already in talks about multiple sites. There's 2 others we're looking at, because football, obviously, with the interest of like my son's team, they only did a poster last few months ago, and they filled the team to up to like 15-20 players within weeks. So it will definitely roll out with the football side of it.
Picking on the sustainable topic that we were talking about, I watched a documentary recently on Netflix called Live to 100, and that talks obviously a lot about purpose. And I think one of the reasons why I've got involved with Ince Rose Bridge is that I've gone past 50 now, so I'm looking at the second half of my life, and I realise that we all need a purpose. So at the moment it's for providing the facility for young people to play sport, but there are so many people around that, older people who can get involved being a groundsman, being involved in a voluntary capacity in different ways. And you know, they do say it takes a village to raise a child. It takes a community to develop a strong and successful community, doesn't it? Passing on the good habits and messages that you've talked about. So I'm hopefully involved with a club here now that over the future will be a blueprint for other clubs within the Wigan Borough as well to learn and grow, and hopefully having conversations with Wigan Warriors chairman Chris Brooks about that, about how they can connect and link up departments, divisions, groups, people, communities in a better integrated manner in the borough.
Yeah, because as you guys will probably know, one of the programs that we've been working on with Magical here and Wigan Warriors as well, as being a program that we developed in partnership with a group called Pianos, Pies and Pirouettes, who you probably know, who did some of the ballet dancing with the rugby players years ago in 2017. And I just found it fascinating that Alan Gregory came up with that concept. And I remember he was saying about, you know, if Rudolf Nureyev was a rugby player, it'd be like the best ever, or if, you know, Wigan Warriors players were playing for, like yourself, Phil, if you was a ballet dancer, you'd be one of the
probably
best.
Not me, probably not me.
Or maybe you someone else.
Maybe Jason Robinson.
Yeah.
Martin Afire, perhaps.
And I've always found it fascinating, like I say, just that there. And and I always felt that, and then on the back of that, we started working on this thing called Made in Wigan Minis, with the idea that everybody who lives in the Wigan Borough, there's something about us, isn't there, that special thing that we have, you know, we're Wiganers at heart, and everywhere I go, you know, people always kind of, and it's like as soon as you say Wigan, and for me, there's always been that special skill that everybody's got, and like you say, the role that sport can play in it, whether it's grounds maintenance, whether it's the journalism side of it, the signage stuff, that there's just something about it, and you know, I was talking to Wigan Council recently, and it's certainly when we looked at things like the music festivals and the success of them. A few months ago at Robin Park, and it's like, well, what is going to be the future for this, and if this is going to be an annual thing, the venue sounded like it was perfect, but we need to start getting better at maybe some of the local suppliers and local people getting a bit more involved in it. So hopefully some of that supply chain is starting to get there. And if we have something like that from the music side of it, then you will start getting young people thinking, you know, I want to be on that stage soon. And like I said, but sport, especially rugby and football, have been doing it for years, and obviously there's cricket, there's bowling.
Well, you've got to look at the athletics as well with Jenny Meadows and then Keely Hodgson.
Yeah.
She's a gold medalist and living in the borough.
Yeah.
So you're talking about inspiring people from rugby and football, athletics. You can dream and you can see your heroes on the telly, and like certainly Jenny still goes running around Abram and things like that. So they're inspired. You can be inspired by anyone about any role in sport, and like you said, from sports science to physios to the data analysis, there's so many multi areas in sport. You can go and achieve a life in sport anywhere in the world, from starting and just being here and being inspired to do it. It's incredible. It's so powerful.
It is, and it just, like I said, it keeps that money locally. It's exactly the key thing, and it fascinating. I've always felt with like people like Jenny, obviously, I was lucky to kind of grow up in Abram with obviously Jenny, and to think that when she kind of did all that training, she didn't feel the need to kind of go abroad or go elsewhere in the country, but she used to run around Platt Bridge all the time, and you think that's amazing that she thought, no, I'm gonna, everything I need to be an Olympian I can do here in the Wigan area, etc. And but yeah, no, and I think we were saying before about the changing times, that even just something like the name of the stadium now being named after the brick, for me that's like a massive sign that we've got Mike Danson, we've got stuff going on where we're not having to kind of think, yeah, we're going to have stadiums named after betting companies, but we've gone for a local charity group. Just for me meant, as a champion of this sector, thought that means something special. And when I speak to people, I think, I can't believe that's happened. People are amazed that our stadium is named after a charity source enterprise. I mean, how do you guys think about that? Did it?
I mean, it's great. I've only met Mike Danson once myself, so I don't know him well. But the noises you hear and the signals that we see seem to be positive, and he's aware, doesn't he? He wants to give back to the community that he grew up in.
Yeah. So where would you like to see, in terms of obviously your role now with Ince? I mean, you've obviously got a lot of knowledge and wisdom over the years. How do you?
I'm a novice though, really. I've been involved in professional rugby for the last 25 years of my life, so I have occasionally been to watch games down at Ince Rose Bridge, but I'm nowhere an expert in that. I was a trustee for Sport England in distributing grants about 20 years ago as well, but I understand that was in a way sometimes a flawed situation. The money was sent to the people who could apply the best, but they weren't necessarily the best applicants or the ones who needed it the most. Sometimes very enthusiastic volunteers, at a smaller level, were going to do greater work, but didn't have the experience or skills to fill in the application form. So sometimes the money wasn't given to the best people. And on a smaller scale here now, I know from my experience here with Ince Rose Bridge that they are talented people who are enthusiastic and also now have the skills to apply and get the grants. So I think we've got a great team of people at Ince Rose Bridge. I know the area because I've played rugby there as myself, and I hope that I can have a small part in making a change to people's lives. I'm aware of a young boy in the Wigan area who's probably got a lot of athletic ability, but at the moment hasn't found a sport that he loves or needs, and I think I'm hopefully going to try and challenge his energy down to Ince Rose Bridge or to another club as well. Wrestling we've talked about in Wigan area is very successful, so's football and athletics. We've got to try and get people before they go off the rails into the right area, not just because they might go on to be a great sportsman. I think sport teaches you self-discipline, discipline. It generally teaches you respect. You've got to deal with people in your team. I think those are the important qualities. I'm 53 years of age now. On a weekend, I bump into a man who 40 years ago I used to play rugby with in Ince, and I can tell he's not been a successful sportsman, but he's been a successful father. He's held his job together. All the things that I respect and have admiration for, and I'm hopefully that Ince Rose Bridge can have those positive impacts on young people again now for the next 40, 50 years.
Yeah. It's going to be amazing, isn't it? Yeah. And I think that's the thing, and it's fascinating when we say about the giving back to the community. And there's something, and we've said before earlier that one of the first podcasts we did was with Stephen Weil, and I know there's Stephen, there's obviously Mick Turner, there's a few etc. Now, obviously Danny Sculthorpe in the past, and there's something around the role that the rugby league community especially has been doing around mental well-being. I know that's something obviously you're doing a lot, aren't you? On with we mentioned before about the men's club and other stuff you're trying to work on, so you've got a lot of plans.
Well, it's just supporting people in life, like as you said. It's not just the kids. It's like I said, we do the walking football, which is brilliant. And when we were getting 6 to 8 lads, we couldn't stop it because it was making that much of a difference to them. So if they're widowed or they're on their own or something, they never miss. They're never injured. Someone can barely walk, but they're there week in, week out because they love it. And like one of the lads' sons said, "I've got my dad back. I see me dad doing what he loves." If you played your sport all your life and then suddenly you've not got it, there's a massive hole in your life of your team being with your teammates, not just the actual playing of it. They argue more than anything. It's like 50-year-old kids running around. Well, not meant to be running, but they run. But they're just kids playing football again, doing what they love and what they've always loved. And it's not just the sport. It's a major part of your life. The friendships, the teammates, the camaraderie around it, what goes with it. They come for that, and the football's like the byproduct of it. So we want to support people like that. The ones, like one lad's just had a nip up. One lad had sort of major heart problems, so we've said, well, what can we do to support these who can't play, who are struggling without being able to play? We'll set up a men's club where they can come have a tea or coffee, and they can play darts, dominoes, chess, whatever they want to play. But more than anything, they just come and chat with each other. So it's about supporting the kids from being, what we want to do is under fives all the way through to older age. And if you can support people all the way through their lives, again, where you said sport's so powerful, it can change and support your lives. And like I said, major issues with mental health and suicides, and I know Ince has had loads of issues as well with that. And kids I used to teach at Rose Bridge, and it's heartbreaking when you see it. And then we've got two friends who've committed suicide as well. Your life's never the same after it. So we've got to support these before it goes that way, and I think we have to play a role in that and try and support people the best we can. So it is changing lives and supporting lives and giving back. What you said before, it's so powerful, and I think we've all got a massive role to do that and support people.
And we were saying earlier on, weren't we, about the diversity in boards and like yourselves and that stuff, and how, you know, like you say, back in the day, a lot of boards were relying on grants to do this kind of work. And now our sector has been seeing a lot around, you know, reducing, obviously, you know, somebody like you mentioned before about learning disabilities, mental well-being, etc. But one of the things I've always looked at is that specialism around. We all know about accountancy. We all would need. We've got an organisation. We need a bookkeeper to do our finances. But there's something now around social accountancy that people are starting to talk about. Because you're right, you know, whether it's around reducing pressure on the GPs, etc. You know, how do we measure that? And that's been really hard. And I know one of Hannah's colleagues who was here earlier, her colleague Melissa, is doing a lot of work around community health building, and that's one thing we've been talking about at the minute. We have great support from Wigan Council, we've got great support from some of the other anchor organisations, and we've got support from the NHS locally at Wigan, Wrighton and Lee. But it's been hard to kind of say to people, it's like, actually, so you take, say, mental well-being group, and you mentioned there, or saving somebody from, you know, barriers in their life. How do we kind of measure that? Because you're right, realistically, we shouldn't be, as a sector, having to keep writing funding bids or doing things like this. We need to be, you know, saying that actually, you know, by investing in our sector, we are.
But that's not measurable.
It's hard
just
to do.
To smile at someone. I say when people are working on the pitches, I said just have a chat. The dog walking over, so just have a chat to them, and they'll open up and they'll talk to you. And I said that might be the only conversation they have in a day. So just have a chat, stop and have a chat to them, and you see people just come to life, and it's like, because they value that, and it's like life's, like you said before, it's tough and it's hard. If anyone can just help and support someone just with a smile, that's the easiest thing you can do, or to give to someone, and therefore we have a better society and a better community. And we can't change the world where we are, but we can change our small corner of the world for better. I think that's what we've got to do, but you can't measure that.
Yeah. So it's a good place to stop there. Do you want to? Is there anything else you guys want to that we've not mentioned? Is there anything else?
No, I'm good.
I know Dean sent me through a list of the stuff that you guys are doing. I'm trying to make sure everything is. You talked about some of the buildings. You talked about learning disabilities and that. So I know you've got all your.
Yeah, well, like obviously we looked at like what the rugby clubs were doing, and we're like, for football, you see cats yourselves, St Peter's, everywhere there, St Pat's, and then St Cuthbert's, and I said, well, at football, there's no one doing any of that.
Yeah.
And you talk about football, and we're like, well, why is there no one in the area doing this, or not big enough? And we looked at it, and we're like, well, we've got to look at these models to do it. So like where you've got your dome and stuff, that's something what we need to do for our football, something like that, and a community hub, because your club's like the art of the community there. So it's like we need to do that in Abram, of this community hub, for people to go, to like belong to somewhere, be part of something.
Yeah.
So that we looked at the model of local rugby club and said, well, that's something we need to do for football and our members.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of the Dome as well, it's a great facility for indoor training, but we use it for other things as like revenue. Finch is just an event there that we had to do a lot of work to get that free, but like you can use it for anything. It's never been used for it like that 5 years ago, and we've just tapped into it for all sorts. So it can be a revenue for your club as well.
Yeah, well, that's it. Just for ourselves training, to offer more, to do more,
Yeah.
and then bring in a revenue from all different areas as well.
Yeah.
So we, like we said before, different sports, offering more football teams and indoor space, and crucially, financially, not costing a fortune. Where you go and hire a facility now, and some of the rates are extortionate.
Yeah, they are. We've had it like, because the rugby side has grown that much the last few years. We've got St Williams Field back, junior section. Some of the teams use that, but loads of our teams have hired Fosters this year. They haven't raised money to pay for it.
To just afford it.
Yeah, it is dear.
It's expensive, and then, like I said before, it was more expensive for adults.
Yeah.
So it's like sport has to be available and affordable for all. Money shouldn't be a barrier to prevent you from playing sport, because we're saying the role that sport has and how valuable it is to people's lives. And money shouldn't be a barrier to people participating.
No, I agree with that.
And that's the problem. There's a lot of companies who want to make money because they see the teams and go, well, we can make money on the back of this. And it's like, everyone should be playing a role to get people involved and make it affordable.
So everybody can afford it
Yeah.
too,
To access it and do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. 100%.